All
Sounds
right.
like it.
Yep. All righty. All right. Well, welcome everybody. I am Riley Belden England, and I work on the philanthropic and alumni engagement team here. I want to welcome you all to the Alumni Speaker Series presented by Pitt Social Work, uh, Pitt School of Social Work's Alumni Council. The Alumni Council's mission is to serve as a bridge between the school and the social work community and is actively committed to connecting and engaging current students, alumni, and faculty. The Alumni Speaker Series is a way to highlight alums and allow them to share their experiences in the program and throughout their career. It is our hope that this program acts as a reminder and motivator to our students and fellow alum of all the incredible possibilities that exist for social workers. I'm going to hand over the program to Bella Coletti, a 2022 MSW graduate and a member of the Alumni Council, to introduce our speaker, Hallie Mays.
Hi, everyone. I am Bella, MSW. So our speaker this evening, of course, is Hallie Mays. So Hallie graduated from the University of Pittsburgh School of Social Work with her from the bachelor's program in 1997. After graduating, she moved to Washington, D.C. for what she thought would be only a short-term detour on her way to obtaining a master's degree later on. Today, she is a trusted top Democratic political fundraiser on Capitol Hill. Hallie was fortunate enough to have started her career in politics when then U.S. Senate Minority Leader Tom Daschle. And since her first job with them, she has gone on to work on well over 40 U.S. Senate and congressional campaigns, including current clients Senator Mark Kelly, Senator Maggie Hassan, Representative Jamie Raskin, and Representative Chrissy Houlihan. In 2004, Hallie started her own political consulting business, HM Consulting, leading a team on a wide variety of races, varying in size and in fundraising goals as well. Throughout her career, Hallie has raised tens of millions for Democratic candidates across the country. She counts her experience at the University of Pittsburgh in the School of Social Work as laying the foundation for wanting to help people and contribute to the greater good, which were essential components of her overall success. Hallie is proud to be a Pennsylvania native. She currently resides in Silver Springs, Maryland, with her husband, two teens, and two rescue dogs. And Hallie, would love for you to take it away and give us a bit more information about you and right here.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me today. I'm really excited to be here and talk a little bit about my experience, not only at Pitt, but also since graduating, which feels like just a few minutes ago, but it has been a very long journey since graduation, one that I'm very proud of and one that has brought lots of unique forks in the road and decisions along the way that have sort of added excitement to where I am today. As you mentioned, I graduated from Pitt in 1997 and have been working in politics ever since. There were a few key moments. I know, Bella, when we did a pre-interview for this call, you'd asked me how or when, I had thought about a career in politics. And the really interesting thing is, a career in politics was not really on my radar until I had an experience as an intern in Washington, D.C., and had really been planning my life, and my thought was that I would have a career as a social worker after my time at the University of Pittsburgh. Just to take a step back, I grew up, as you mentioned, I grew up in Chester County, Pennsylvania, so in southeastern Pennsylvania. Went to the University of Pittsburgh, was very excited for my experience and my time there, not really realizing or understanding how influential it would be in my life and what a great experience it would be for me. Summer between my sophomore and junior year of college, I went and worked at a dude ranch in Colorado, Winter Park, Colorado, where I met my now husband and had a great experience doing that. the next summer, I was really hopeful to go and continue my, Western experience and go with the same group of people and go work on a dude ranch in Montana. My dad had different plans for me and told me that I was going to go live with my sister in Washington, D.C. and get an internship there. Upon arrival in Washington, the internship that I had set up, I think it's very hard for some folks in the younger generation to understand that in order for me to go and get that internship, I had to go to the stacks at the Hillman Library and look through letters that people had submitted. There was no Google, email, things like that. But I ended up getting an internship, but when I got to Washington, it was like many nonprofits. They were understaffed and really kept pushing me off week after week. And my sister really did not want to have any of it. She kept telling me I needed to do something. So she helped me get in with Senator Daschle's team and office. And it was just really something that I will never forget. It was a wonderful experience. I really enjoyed my time there, and that really launched into the career that I have today. They, they had me down for the 1996 presidential inauguration, and then offered me a job shortly thereafter for when I graduated college. And I have literally been doing political fundraising ever since. I worked for Tom for many years and then have just continued on. I worked at the Democratic Senatorial Campaign Committee and then started my own business where I've had the awesome experience to work for many different campaigns and people and really get to see a broad section of different kinds of campaigns and politicians and causes and really see political technology develop, just how technology in general, Twitter, email, everything has really changed over the course of the last 25 plus years. And it's been really great to have a front row seat for that experience. While I was at Pitt, I was active in many different organizations and groups, and just really feel like that time there really helped me grow into the person I am today. The friendships I have lasted many years. The educational opportunities that I had were just very pivotal, and it's really something that I am very grateful for. So that's a little bit about me and kind of how I ended up here. Bella, I know you probably had a few questions for me too.
Yes, I most certainly do have some questions for you. And I think I want to start back with your experience at Pitt. I mean, when we chatted, you had a lot of wonderful things to say. So I want to know if you can tell us a bit more about your undergraduate experience and kind of these relationships that you alluded to, those that were really important, whether this was with faculty members or peer that were especially helpful to you at this time.
Yeah, I think one professor, and I know she is still there, was Helen Petracki, was a very influential um, professor in my life. And, she really, I remember she was a working mom, and I remember just her sort of being a trailblazer, I think, to me in my life of thinking back on, you know, her the way she not only taught us our coursework, but really taught us a lot about life and what that looked like post graduation. Previous to that, I hadn't had a professor at Pitt that I was on such a close basis with, and really someone that I felt like shared a genuine interest in all of us growing and developing into the people that we were and could be. I remember very, very clearly, I think it was the end of my junior year. She had all of us to her house, all of us that were in one of her classes, and you had to turn in your final paper at that, she had us all over for dinner. And I just remember how meaningful that was to me and how special it was that she, treasured us enough to also invite us into her home. And that was really great. I think also, I think I had mentioned to you that I'd been volunteering. for several years at the Schumann Juvenile Detention Center while I was in college, and then ended up doing that as my practicum my senior year. And that was kind of a culmination of those years of being engaged there, and really had an opportunity that I'm not sure how many students today get to do that. I'm not exactly sure what that program even still looks like, but at that time it was something that was very special for me because I really did get to see the sort of how those years of relationships kind of came together for my senior year. And I think I really learned a lot of what it was like to be in a work setting and how to put a lot of my skills into practice. So I think those were two things that I would mention that were really great. I think also just really like living in Oakland, right, was a really unique and interesting experience as a young human, and something that, um, I think was thinking back on it. I often think back on that time and just, how unique it was. And think Pitt's campus is just a very great place because it is a campus in the middle of the city. And I think those were a couple of my highlights.
Muted, sorry. That's awesome, amazing. It sounds like you had some really wonderful relationships throughout your pit experience, and I think those relationships can be really formative and helpful for us even beyond our degree and kind of where we go from there. So, next up, I'm curious because it's fairly easy to find Pitt alumni in Western Pennsylvania to help you expand your network. So, when you moved to DC, how did you kind of do personal work to help expand your network? And were there any Pitt involved and Pitt alumni involved in that as well, or was it just kind of your own doing?
Yeah, well, I think again, just an interesting, footnote to just this whole conversation is just also how I know I mentioned how technology has changed in campaigns, but how technology just changed since I graduated from college. I mean, when I graduated, in order for me to connect with someone in a meaningful way, I had to write them a letter or pick up the phone and call them. I mean, there was no other way to reach them if I wanted to communicate with them. There was a lot of effort involved in being in and remaining in contact with folks, professors and even friends, folks that we didn't have in, Instagram or Facebook or things that now can keep people very connected in a lot of ways. So I was very fortunate that I lived with a woman from Pitt, and I had other friends in DC that were from Pitt. They were a great resource and source of not only friendship but of just growth opportunities in general, and that was very meaningful for me. But I do think as a whole it was definitely much harder, right? Because just simply now, like, I mean, I went on LinkedIn the other day and it was pulling up people that had gone to my same high school as like possible connections. I mean, that is that's really crazy. And that is such a great resource for folks now. And so I would really say, you know, to anybody coming up now to really, you know, take full advantage of the opportunities that you have in terms of staying connected with people via email, text, LinkedIn, however that is, because you never know when those relationships or connections are really going to come back. I mean, even just since this went out, I've had several folks friend request me. I guess I don't know if that what you call it, friend request on LinkedIn, but request a connection on LinkedIn that, when I looked at them, they were recent, Pitt social work grads, and I thought that was really, and that's neat for me, and that's really a great way to just stay connected in general. So I think for me, it was definitely um I would say harder than it would be today. I do not have a lot of connections to Pitt grads in DC professionally. I know a few, and but I wish I knew more. And that's, I hope opportunities like this really expand that those, that network and those opportunities in general, because I do think for me, being a Pitt grad is something I'm very proud of and something that I would really love to, you know, be more involved in and help others, um, help anybody that I can. I mean, I think that's also, I should just like as a total side note to just the Pitt thing, one of the things I feel like I have learned and really understood in my how I have been successful in my business and in politics is that I've had some really great people that have helped pull me along the way and given me really great opportunities. And so if anybody ever reaches out to me and asks me for coffee or a few minutes to talk about their path or what are opportunities or can you pass this resume along, I always do, because I really do feel like we probably have a lot of women on this call, but not only as women, but just as humans, I think it's a really good a good way to be. So that has not brought me any closer in a Pitt alum, but I do think it's just a great thing in general that I think that probably people do not think happens very often in politics. But I really try to do that.
Hey, Hallie, even if it's not happening for you right now, I think we're really grateful to have you here because you are helping us to kind of bridge those connections between many of our students. And I can say also from a personal stance, like I'm also living in the Colorado area now and may not have as many MSW or BASW alumni in my area, but these are really great opportunities to, of course, connect with each other. So again, we really appreciate you being here. So on that note, I would love to like dive a little bit more into the work that you're doing now. So I know that as an MSW student, there were some courses that involved like social entrepreneurship or starting your own business. So whether you're establishing like a private practice as an LCSW or maybe even as the executive director of a new nonprofit, I think many of our students and alumni can relate to kind of your entrepreneurial spirit. So I would love to know if you could talk more about your journey with starting Consulting and how it's evolved over the past 20 years.
Yeah, and I think I mentioned this to you when we spoke. I think that those classes were not there when I was there, and I
Mhm.
wish they had been because I think that and I really think that having a business course should be required for pretty much every single major because it is in some way, shape, or form you're going to encounter it, and it is real. They're really great skills to have. Um, I think that for me, when I look back on my whole like start to finish, like how I got involved in politics, I really feel like I took a lot of very like looking in hindsight, they were probably decisions that I probably should have spent a lot more time thinking about or mulling over or given more, I don't know, just more credence. I don't know. I started my business like absolutely on a whim. And I think now if I was starting that same business, I would have like, a million spreadsheets and I'd be so apprehensive about it. Um, I worked at the DSCC and they asked me to go start a project for them. And basically to do that, I had to start a business. And so I just went and started a business and I have learned so much along the way that I wish, maybe I'd known at the beginning. But I think, yeah, I think it really worked out for me in that regard because it doesn't always for people starting businesses, but it's an interesting thing because, and I think probably most folks that run a business or start a business feel this way too, because you're simultaneously running a business, managing employees, managing clients, doing the work, but you're also like having to make sure like, payroll is run, right? So there's all sorts of different pieces that aren't subject matter specific that come into play that are keeping you occupied and keeping you busy and keeping your mind, filling your plate of things you got to do in a day. And so I think for me, I really didn't, I didn't anticipate how much time that can take and occupy when starting a business. So in the very beginning, had one or two clients, and now I have many more, and I'm very grateful for that, and I'm very grateful for the opportunity to have those clients and have great people working for me, and have the opportunity to pitch great members of Congress. So I guess it's working out a little bit, but there's always room to grow and change and pivot. And I'm always learning something new that might be happening in terms of ways to, things like save money, or, how to consolidate certain pieces of the business. I would say that, again, just back to what I just talked about a minute ago, I have really, in the last several years, made it a very specific point of, like, there are, I don't want to say many, but there's a group of mostly women that do what I do too. So we all know each other. We are all friendly. Um, but yet they are, at the end of the day, also your competition in some way, right? So I think for a lot of years there was this very competitive spirit, not as collegial. And I've just really taken it upon myself in the last probably like 5 or 8 years to make friendships with these mostly women. And I think that I have also learned a lot from them. And that is, again, just another piece of this that, how can I help you? I can't do this project. Can you? They will pass one back to you. Hey, I'm having this issue, or hey, do you have this phone number? Whatever it is, we're all in this together. And I think that has made a difference just in business in general, that isn't related to running a business, but it is, they're sort of my colleagues, for lack of a better term, in certain ways too. So that's been another interesting, probably maturity, as I get older, thinking about that, and sort of changing my view on that, and how I interact with folks.
That's really great. And I think a lot of us can also identify with that. I mean, when we talk about nonprofit work or social work in general, it's very relational. We are constantly chatting with our peers, which in and of itself oftentimes are even in competition for funding from foundations and the government entities as well. So I think that that's really relatable for a lot of our students and alumni. And in the spirit of these types of relationships, I'm curious, in the development of your team and the development of your mission and vision, how have like social work values influenced your business?
Yeah, I mean, I think, just taking another step back here too, I do think that, to make a choice that your major is going to be social work in college is, you really have a vision of wanting to see leave the world in a better place. Like, that is how I would describe that. I know everyone in this call has some connection back to social work, so I'd be interested in others' view on that too. But I do think that you have to have, from a, you are making a choice that your work and something you are going to spend your time on, you want to help make the world a better place. And that was definitely how I was growing up, and coming into college and choosing a major. And so I think that in terms of politics, I think that is just one, that is a way of how my view on that has manifested. And again, not one that I really saw coming, but one that I'm certainly grateful for because I do think, and not to be political, but like I do think like we've had over the last, 10 years, 8, 10 years, like we've had some really tough choices to make as a country. And, I really feel like I've had a front row seat to that in terms of helping make a difference. And I know that what I do raises money to run the ads and do all the things that people probably want to throw shoes at their TV for. But at the end of the day, it is something that I've been able to channel you know, my my feelings of how to help see the world the way that I do. And everyone has their own opinions on that, but how I would like to see things and how I feel things would be, fair and just, a just world. And I've been able to help elect people directly that are making key decisions and have an opportunity to make and to vote in ways that are really directly impacting things that I care about, that I hope for future generations to care about. And so yeah, I think just how have I been able to take my social work skills? I think that um I do think like I remember being in social work class and in social work the 2 years that we were in social work school, and really, practicing talking to people in small groups, and really like I think a lot of the communication pieces, and how to talk to people that maybe you do not see eye to eye with was really, I think, influential too, and has been very helpful to me. I think another piece of this, and I know Bella, I mentioned this to you when we talked, like I was like my social work class, and I don't know how they are today. We were about 100 kids, and we all became close, and we were all incredibly different. Like um some commuted to Pitt. Like I lived on campus. Some kids lived off campus. Like um so we were all different colors, shapes, sizes, like sexual orientation. Like it was a very diverse group of people that wasn't necessarily my experience at Pitt until I was in the School of Social Work. And I think that was really, has really helped carry. I've taken that experience with me too, of how to operate with a small group of people. And this goes back to Helen Petracchi. She was so clever, because she would always, I remember, always take people that seemed to have the least in common and pair them up or put them on a project. And that was always really great. And we knew what she was up to, but she probably didn't think we did. But it was, I think, all of those things you take with you and you take them into whatever you go and do in life. And I think that, um, I have a son who's just finished his freshman year of college, and I have a 16-year-old daughter. And thinking about their college experiences, like I hope they have as great professors and thoughtful conversations in their classrooms that lead them to still thinking about it, 25 plus years later.
First off, you talked a lot about like your business and the kind of influence that you hope to have in the world, and we are just so grateful for that. I think many of us share a lot of the same values of it being social workers, and of course, again, we're really grateful for that. And you also, of course, talked about the experience that you've had working with people of different walks of life in the social work program, and well, of course, to all of my current students, your textbooks are very important, but you are going to learn a lot from the peers around you. And I think, Hallie, you've really described that perfectly. So far we've talked about like of course, your entrepreneurial aspects of your business. You've also mentioned how you feel very familiar with all of the evolving political tech that you use in your line of work. I'm curious, as we've kind of talked through this, How do you stay up to date on best practices, more specifically on fundraising?
That's a great question. I think that, and again, just taking a little bit of a step back, I think one
Yeah.
of the very cool things about having your own business is, even though I've been doing the same thing for so many years, every client, every project, every day, really is a new experience and a new landscape of what's happening. I lived through 9/11 on the Hill and I lived through January 6th on the Hill. I mean, these are times when things are dramatically changed in front of your face and you are having to pivot how you're communicating. And obviously, it is so front of mind and public, and the whole world is watching. And um, fundraising, political fundraising is not not something people are thinking about in those moments. So I think just generally, that's a point I should have made earlier when we talked about this, was just how, when I talk to people about what I do too, it is you do have to stay politically alert of how you're not being insensitive. So I think that would be some of the best practices, but it's just you really like you cannot like you really just have to maintain a sense of what's happening in the world and around you and what's I'm not on Twitter very often, but you do need to like check in, right? And know that things are happening and maybe there's something that you need to be sensitive to. Um, I am in the middle of like launching a new project with a client. We didn't really know the exact legalese on it. And so, today, like I did a couple calls with lawyers and some compliance folks, and we're working through it and we're trying to figure out how to get it done in a compliant and legal way and yet accomplish the mission that we would like. And so I think that's the one of the neat parts about what I do is that I can continue to do different projects and different pieces that use different parts of my brain, which is something that I like. Um, so it's not like there's a class or like I know in many professions there's like you have to keep your license, up to date. Um I think it's more just kind of on the fly. And I think some of it is about the opportunities that, you're offered and how that looks and knowing how a 501(c)(3) works versus a PAC versus you know, a victory fund, like just really staying on top of that stuff and how to remain um legally compliant. I would also say I have made like so there's obviously lawyers and then there's compliance in fundraising. And so they make sure all of our FEC reports and all of our checks and if there's anything off, they will keep us in line. And I have made some very good friends over the years with some compliance friends who um, will entertain a phone call from me for free to ask some questions like, is this okay? Does this sound weird? Can we make this happen? And so, or yeah, just generally helping me, navigate this because um, again, things being very public and out there, me doing one thing wrong, can have really grave impact for some of my clients. And I would never ever want to be the source of them having you know, a bad article or a bad issue or having an FEC complaint against them. Because that would be, you know, possibly career ending, and that's not something that you would want to have have happen. So I think it's mostly remaining up to date on the law. And then at the same time, like you really have to also follow what your colleagues, the people I talked about before, what they're working on. And this is where having them as friends can also be, I'll say, oh, what are you working on? Oh, you're doing that. How does that work? How do you do that? What kind of money are you raising for that? So I think it's a little bit more back of the napkin, staying up to date and staying current.
Kelly, I really appreciate that response because I knew it was going to be a tough question because fundraising on your in your world versus maybe like a typical nonprofit, I'm sure looks very different, especially with all of like the rules and the regulations that you have to follow. But some things that I see that are really consistent in the way that you're responding and the way that the with the how I've come to know you and learn more about you is that you're very resilient and you are not afraid to use your network when you absolutely need to, or even when it's a simple thing. Yeah, so again, really appreciate that. We are about to flip it over to our audience for any questions that they may have. I do have just one last quick
Yeah.
question for you, and I just want to know, what do you miss most about Pitt's campus?
I this is gonna sound super, super cheesy, but I really honestly, I think that one of the things I miss and this is not that it's current, but in its former form, I miss that we did not have cell phones. I mean, I would go back. I don't say I don't miss. I would go back to that, and that um, there was just, we didn't have that in college, which is for better or worse, but I would say just kind of being roaming around and hanging out and not I don't think we were worried about things in the same way that kids are today, in general, but certainly on college campuses. If you missed meeting your friends in the lobby, you missed your friends going out, like there was no tracking them down. You got to go hunt them down. I think that was like a little bit of a time of, maybe for lack of a better term, innocence, right? And so I think there's something freeing about that we were just hanging out, having a good time, enjoying Pitt's campus, and kind of a little bit more, wild than maybe kids are today.
Yeah, I think those of us that went through school during the pandemic definitely understand that very intimately, like myself. But thank you so much for answering all of my questions. I'd love to throw it over to some of our audience members. If they have any questions, I think maybe like raising your hand and we can call on you might be the best way to kind of go about this. Or if you wanted to put it in a chat and you wanted me to read the question, I'm more than happy to do that for you as well.
Hi, I'm happy to. Oh,
Oh
should I
yeah,
raise
go
my
ahead.
hand?
It's okay. You can kick us off, Aviva.
Okay. Hi, I'm Aviva. I live in Pittsburgh and I did my MSW at the School of Social Work at Pitt. I was really intrigued by this conversation and to hear you speak, Hallie, because I think that politics is a place that as a social worker, I can feel very disgusted with or frustrated with from a values and an ethics standpoint. And I mean, obviously you're picking candidates to work with whose mission you believe in, whose values and ethics align with yours. But I'm just curious to hear, how have you been challenged in the space or the field that you work by, like, vis-a-vis your social work values, and how do you manage that?
No, it's a really good question because I think that, generally politics gets a really bad name and a bad rap. And I will say that I feel very lucky that I have been able to work for some, insanely smart, you know, uh, people that are really in this to do the right thing. And, there's not, there's not a lot of nonsense. But that said, I have definitely experienced that, and I have, in the past, had experiences with members, that either I've worked for or I've come in contact with, that, that is not how they operate, and it has been very tough. And, I will say, I now have, again, with maturity, I now have what I would call a no jerk rule. You can fill in the other name for jerk if you want, but I don't tolerate it. And I don't work with people like that. And I think that definitely is something that has come from having, having, I think a social work background has definitely been helpful in that. And so, um, yeah, I don't know if that helps because I think, yeah,
Thanks.
yeah.
All right, we got some praise for that question in the chat as well. So thanks so much for that. That was really good. Morgan, did you have a question that you wanted to ask?
Yeah, when getting into these political spaces and looking for a job, how do you market your social work degree, to kind of make you stand apart in the application process?
That is a great question. Um, so I would say for myself, when I am hiring for my own firm or when I'm helping a client look for folks, oftentimes political science majors are not the top resume that I would go for. Um, because I think sometimes, and this is no slander to anyone that might be a political science major, but I think sometimes like learning political science in a classroom in a vacuum is a very different thing than living it. And so I think that, some demonstrated experience on your resume would be incredibly helpful. I no idea how old you are or if you've graduated or you're still in school or anything like that, but and you don't need to tell me, but I think that, you know, volunteering on a campaign or finding an internship if you're still in school, having some demonstrated experience. And I would say that for political science majors too. I shouldn't be eliminating them from my from what I'm saying. But I think that having demonstrated experience, period, is really important and helpful and something that would help your resume stand out in general and is something that I really think is just invaluable across the board. So I think that having a social work degree would not be, exclusive. Like you would not be excluded from a interview process. I think that people certainly it depends on if you are, looking for a job in an official office, on a campaign, at a lobbying shop. I think there's like a bunch of different ways, a bunch of different entry points into politics in general, but certainly in DC. And I think that you know, everybody needs really great writers. And, if that's something certainly you exercise in getting an in social work degree or an MSW. And I think those are there's ways to put a spotlight on the pieces of your social work degree that are that translate over.
Mark, and I'd also love to say, like, your alumni network is always going to be a resource to you. And that's not just the MSW program. So, coming from someone who, like Hallie, is more on the kind of macro side of things, more kind of like one of the COSA track graduates, it's really important that you remember more than just the MSW program can be an asset and resource to you, especially like MPH program or the Master Public Health or Master Public Administration, like, or just anyone who's got H2P on their LinkedIn. You'd be
Yeah.
really surprised who's willing to connect with you and who's excited to connect with you. And those are really going to be your advocates. I mean, if anything came out of this conversation, it's how important your network can be to you. And again, that network does not have to be limited to the MSW program.
I mean, today I literally went on LinkedIn because this woman's name came across something and I was like, I've never heard that name. And I was like, who is this? And then it was like, do you want to connect? And I was like, sure. And it says connect with a note now. I don't know if that's new or I just haven't done that in a while on LinkedIn, but and I sent a little note and she wrote me back. Like, so I think that trying things like that, again, I think most people like to have some kind of a personal connection too. And so I think making that Pitt connection is really great.
All right. Any other questions from our audience or follow up on any of the questions that we just had or responses we just had?
Can I throw one more out there?
Mhm.
Sorry, I was supposed to tell my family I'm on mute. Um, how did you learn how to raise a lot of money? I've worked in nonprofits before, and I have felt kind of out of my wheelhouse doing the fundraising piece of it. And that wasn't really a part of what I learned in getting my MSW. So how did you acquire that skill?
Um, Thinking. I think, first of all, and lots of people in my family and friends would tell you, I have never lacked the ability to speak or talk. And so I think being able to chit chat and talk and again, really make connections and follow up and make sure people figure, I guess for me, um, how to make connections where people want to take your phone call again and again. And I think those are some of the starters. I think that again, like there's so many different kinds of fundraising. So it depends if it's like, what kind it is. I don't know if you have an example of something, you've tried, but I think a lot of this, even like I fundraise for my kids' schools in the past and things like that. I think having a personal appeal and like a personal reason, um, and really trying to make that connection between why someone should be parting with their personal dollars to give to your cause, whatever that is, because there's millions, literally millions of great causes, um, and things that people can donate to or participate in. So I do think figuring out how to make it personal, and those are some of the places where it starts.
Thanks again.
Yeah.
Fabulous. Any other questions from our audience? All right. Hallie, any like last minute like thoughts that come to mind that you might want to share with our audience?
No, no, I'm really grateful to the University of Pittsburgh and the School of Social Work for this opportunity. And I hope that anyone that is either on this call or listens to this call later, or if there's anybody that reaches out to you, Riley or Bella, I'm happy to connect offline. I'm happy to be a resource. Um, and I think that I'm a unique social work grad, that I'm, not a current practicing social worker, but I think that there's really always ways to make connections and be connected to other people. So happy to continue to connect with anybody.
Wonderful. Thanks so much, Riley. I wasn't sure if you wanted to kind of wrap things up with a final note or you're muted.
You're on mute. It's not
Okay.
working.
Sounds like it's not working. Well, I'll kick it off with, thank you again so much for joining us. We'll certainly keep in touch with all of our audience members and other MSW, BASW affiliated individuals about upcoming alumni speaker series as well in the future. All right. Thanks all so much. Appreciate
Awesome. Thank you so much.
it.